Hi, this is Chase from C&C Commentaries, and today on C&C Movie Breakdowns, we're going to be talking about the 2018 film Upgrade. And I am, of course, joined by, as usual, Nando.
Hello.
Upgrade is the movie we are going to be talking about today.
Yes, it is Upgrade.
What
So,
uh, what are your thoughts on this film?
well, my initial thoughts were, well, this is a more modern movie. This one came out in 2018. So I went to go see this one in theaters, and I really like this movie. Uh, I really like this movie. I especially like the directing by Leigh Whannell, and I think that it has a very interesting premise. It's got a fun little twist, and I think it's really solid overall. I am a big fan of this movie. Those were my initial thoughts of this movie, and it was interesting to see it on a rewatch because I haven't seen this movie in a while. I saw it once in theaters, and I rewatched it. What were your initial thoughts for this movie, Chase?
Well, I hadn't seen this film, but I remember hearing a lot about it when it came out, but I never actually got around to seeing it. But it was hyped up for me, pretty big, and um, I enjoyed it for the most part. Um, and we'll get into it, but I think Logan Marshall Green does a really good job, and I just feel it's I feel like it's it's an interesting premise, but I don't know if it's as executed as well as it could have been, and I don't know if it met what I thought it would in my mind. Um, and but I thought it was intriguing.
Okay, why don't you give us a general synopsis of the movie?
Um, well, Upgrade is a 2018 film, directed by Leigh Whannell, who you may know as he did the recent Invisible Man remake that came out this year. Um, anyways, Upgrade is about a guy named Gray who after he goes out with his wife one night, and he gets beat up and mugged, and he's practically sitting there paralyzed in the hospital. He wants to track down the people that killed his wife. But there's like this inventor dude, and he puts a chip in him that can speak to him, and it gets him like artificial powers, and he's stronger and like more agile and can fight better. So he just basically it's a revenge story.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description. Uh, all right. With that out of the way, let's dive on in to into Upgrade. So, our opening scene of this movie is we just get kind of a nice camera pan. And you see it. There's this man who is gray, and he's working on a what appears to be a nice car. He's working on a like it appears to be a more retro car. But it's nicer. You can see that there's he's just working on his car, but then his wife comes home in a self-driving car, and then him and his wife have this nice interaction, and we learn here through little bits of dialogue that Gray doesn't really like technology
Yeah.
so much. He prefers. There's even that line of dialogue where his wife is like, "Oh, let's print a pizza," and then Gray's like, "Let's make a pizza." You know, I think he prefers to do stuff by hand or that humans would do.
Well, I think it's a lot of, it's touching on the concept of automation in the
Yeah,
real world and how we're replacing so much stuff with automation and making it so that like robots or you know machines can do certain aspects that normally a human would do otherwise. And I think it's very clearly touching on that kind of stuff.
hmm
And I guess I should say, when we were watching this, I didn't know at first that it didn't take place in present day until you know obviously you know some very clear stuff later, like cars and technology wise. That
yeah,
oh, this takes place in 2046,
yeah.
right?
2046.
2046.
This
And
takes
so I was like,
at least in the near
yeah, this
future.
is not 2018.
Yeah. Uh, I really like the world building in this movie because we get these later in the movie. We get these nice establishing shots in like a future city with taller buildings, and it
I don't
just and
I
you
don't feel like there's a lot of world building. I feel like it's mostly focused on him, if anything. I don't
well,
feel like it's focused on what's going outside of him
I
and
feel
his
like the little
story that he's doing.
I feel like the little details make the a nice world building. Like for
Well,
example,
I mean, I don't know if you can just call showing buildings necessarily world building.
yeah, but you also get other things like the police have a ton of drones everywhere. There's just little things that add to the world. It's a very possible near future. That's kind of what I feel this movie is saying. Like, sure, this might seem outlandish now, but yeah, in the year 2046, this could be possible.
And what I like is, and I always appreciate this, how lower budget films
Yeah,
can really stretch out their budget
this movie was
and
made on
make things look better than you think. Sometimes better than multi-$100 million films.
this movie was made on $5 million, so definitely a low budget. So anyway, Gray and his wife, Gray has to go deliver his like old retro car to a rich client because his job is that he, I guess, fixes and delivers older cars for people. And so they they deliver this car to what he's like a very rich inventor,
Hmm.
and he has this really cool underground house, and it's
He's got a freaking cloud,
yeah, he's
just
got
a cloud.
he's got
Like
he's got a little
I
cloud
don't
that he's just
I don't know
working on,
how you capture a cloud in a building.
but he done it.
You just put a leash on that thing, and then I don't know. Just already looking at this guy, I could tell he's up to some no good stuff.
Yeah,
Just he looks weird.
he kind of comes off as like eccentric. It feels like he doesn't really know how to talk to people, and he talks with him, and he shows both of them this little chip that he's developed called STEM, and like he tells them that, oh, this chip can do anything. It can like pilot stuff. He says like this chip is like the future. He really hypes up this chip, but then Gray pipes in and he says things like, "Oh, but it can't make babies," and it's just more examples of how it shows that Gray really doesn't like technology.
Hmm.
So then, after dropping off the car, he and his wife get in her self-driving car, and they're trying to drive home. But the car changes directions, and it starts to speed up until eventually they hit this. I think it's like some kind of speed bump on the ground, and the car flips over and they crash. and then another car pulls up, and 4 guys come out of it, and they get them out of the car, and they beat Gray, and they shoot his wife.
Yeah, I kind of figured going in that the wife wouldn't survive. I felt like you kind of need that instigating event.
Yeah.
And
And they shoot Gray in the neck. And so Gray's like trying to talk to his wife who's bleeding out, and she dies in front of him. And then we cut to the hospital.
And technology and science have really improved apparently in this age.
Yeah.
And they're able to, dare I say, give him an upgrade.
Yeah, so we cut to the hospital, and Gray discovers that he's a quadriplegic. And so he's just in the hospital. His mom is there. She's confronting him, and then we get this scene with Aaron, the inventor guy from earlier that had the chip. So Aaron comes into the hospital, and he asks Gray, like, how is he doing? And he offers him to put STEM into his body as like a trial subject.
Yeah, but he's very clear. He's like, you cannot tell anyone about this. Don't you dare fucking tell people.
Has to be under the table.
Or else. And I'm just like, just nothing good can come from this. Don't. As much as you, I imagine, don't want to be in a wheelchair and would like to move your legs again, this guy is up to some stuff.
Yeah, like even before, Gray or Aaron comes to talk to Gray. Gray tries to commit suicide by overdosing on some medicine.
But the house won't even let him.
Yeah,
they're like, I'm sorry, I cannot give that to you. If I give you one more, it could be lethal. I'm calling the ambulance.
And so he ends up back in the hospital. He has an interaction with Aaron. And so, of course, Gray, being how he hates technology, he's like, no, I don't want to. But then, as Aaron's walking out, he looks back and he says to him, like, what would she want? And
play that card, the dead wife card.
He plays the dead wife card, and so then Gray finally cracks, and he's transported to Aaron's house, and we get this really cool scene of them actually putting the STEM chip into Gray's like spine.
Mm-hmm.
I think the score is done very well, and the way it's shot is you kind of get like a bird's eye view of it, and then you see like the knife going into the skin. It's very kind of like uncomfortable. It made me kind of squeamish when I watched it.
Well, I would hope that most people don't find that particularly pleasing to view.
Yeah.
Seeing someone get cut open and a chip put in them.
But the procedure goes off successfully, and so Gray's sitting in his wheelchair, and he's talking to Aaron, and then he starts to move his limbs again, almost instantly. And so now that he has the chip in him, Gray can move freely. And Aaron and Gray are amazed by it. It's progressing so well. But Aaron has him sign like a confidentiality agreement saying that
non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, an NDA stating that he can't tell anybody about STEM because there's rules and regulations about testing this on people. So, now whenever he's out in public or in front of other people, Gray has to pretend to be a quadriplegic. But when he's alone and at home, he can move about freely.
Which would really suck if he just got a visitor one day,
Yeah,
unexpected.
that'd be unfortunate. So, a detective, so a policewoman named Detective Cortez is assigned to solve the murder case regarding Gray's wife, and she drops off some tapes that the security drone caught of the actual crime taking place, which is a little messed up if you think about it. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know how I would feel about a detective dropping off tapes of my wife's death.
well, I mean, yeah, but maybe he would want to.
Yeah.
Well, obviously he wants to solve it. I should say, when watching this, I realized, the person that plays Cortez seemed very familiar to me, and it's Betty Gabriel, who played the creepy housekeeper in Get Out, and
Yeah.
so that was interesting to see.
And so as Gray is sitting down and he's watching this security footage trying to find something, a voice pops up in his head. And this voice is like, "May I point something out?" And it's a very extreme robotic tone.
That was a dead-on impression.
And at first Gray thinks he's gone insane. He asks him if he's like, "Am I going insane, or have I gone insane?" And the voice is like, "Oh no, I'm STEM." So now he realizes that STEM can talk to him. And STEM points something out in the drone footage. And in the scene where they investigate the drone footage together, it's kind of like a buddy cop scene. They're both investigating together, and it's one of my favorite in the movie. Because the dynamic that STEM and Gray have is I really like it. It's probably my favorite part of this movie.
I mean, STEM's probably my favorite part of the movie, besides Logan Marshall Green. But when watching this, it's hard not to make comparisons between the STEM and Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're even remotely close in the same regard. But I think it's an interesting comparison and contrast.
Yeah.
Because when STEM talks to Gray, I feel like it's almost like a dark comedy. I feel like this movie, if it was a little less serious and slightly more comedic, could have been amazing. I feel like it could have been a really good dark comedy.
Maybe.
In terms of premise and the whole dynamic between STEM and Gray. I felt like there was really something there, and we see touches of that with the bar scene later.
So STEM points out that in the footage, the man that shot Gray's wife isn't holding a gun. He points out that the man's gun is literally in his hand.
Yeah, he's got Captain Marvel shooty hands.
Yeah. And he also points out a military tattoo on one of the guy's hands. And so you get this cool scene in which STEM draws it out using Gray's hand, and the way he draws is like a printer printing something. And it's just I really like those aspects about how truly like a machine STEM is. And so eventually they find out who the guy with the tattoo is. Find out that he's an ex-Marine. And Gray wants to report this information to Detective Cortez, but Stem's like, you can't do that because they're gonna ask you how you found it, and you can't. It's impossible to have found that without me, and you signed that NDA saying that you can't tell anybody that I'm in you. And so Gray just decides, okay, I'm gonna go find out myself. And so,
And that's the movie.
so Gray, initially he goes with his wheelchair into this like rundown neighborhood to the guy's address, and a security drone actually catches footage of him in his wheelchair going to this guy's house. But
First off, you already should be careful and expect there to be drones going around these potential criminals.
yeah,
And you wouldn't think. I mean, obviously he gets away with it. And it's like there's no way you could have done this because you're in a wheelchair.
yeah,
Um,
it's a strong
but
alibi.
they're still suspicious. They're like, why were you there?
Yeah.
There's no reason. And I don't know.
So
I just feel like maybe wait and do it in like a public place.
Gray Gray gets up out of his wheelchair and he breaks into this guy's house. And Stem's like directing him on what to do. Stem's like, oh, check his messages to see what's going on. And they find a lot of mentions on a place called Old Bones. But then they hear the guy get back. And Stem directs him. He's like, hide behind this shelf. And then the sooner the guy enters the room and he's not looking at him, he doesn't know that Gray's there. And Stem's like, strike now. But Gray doesn't. And so they get into a fight, and Gray gets pinned to the floor because he's fighting a guy with Marine Corps training. And Stem tells him,
at least the guy wasn't blind.
and Stem tells him that like he can help Gray. He needs permission to act on his own.
Yeah.
And so we get one of the best parts of this movie, and that's the action.
Well, I feel like the fight scenes are the best part of this movie.
No, they're definitely one of the best.
And
parts.
I feel like that's the thing that kind of holds me back with this movie is that I feel like it's more action over sustenance. Like there's a lot of action going on, but I don't know if like I'm fully invested into why it is happening or what is going on.
Anyways,
Feels like action for sake of action sometimes, which doesn't necessarily intrigue me personally.
But anyway, the sooner that Gray lets Stem act on his own, Stem immediately starts like kicking this guy's ass. So like Stem, I really love the way that the action is shot, because the camera like tracks every single one of his movements, and all of Gray's movements are super mechanical.
Yeah, and like sometimes how he jerks his head and
Yeah.
goes up and down, it's almost comedical.
Yeah. In fact, how Logan Marshall Green actually trained for that is he got the movie had like a personal trainer that would study machines, and basically the idea was to get how a machine would control a human body without wasting any energy, like a machine would be efficient, is what they came up with. Yeah, so Stem just destroys this guy, and eventually he almost Stem takes a knife and he almost rips this guy's head off. Like he almost cuts it entirely in half.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah. Like that was a really cool kill. Like the first time I saw that, I was like, wow. That was
And there's
metal.
there's a kill later on that's pretty great. There's the like this movie's not afraid to show violence and blood.
No, it
It's
isn't.
very all right. I'm not gonna say grounded because obviously it's like even though yeah, like you said earlier, it is set in like 2040s. I feel like it's not necessarily entirely out of the realm possibility with some things. Obviously, we'd have to have huge leaps and bounds in other fields, but it does feel grounded in a way, and it's
Uh,
a very simple revenge story.
yeah.
It's not like this guy is, you know, this isn't Terminator. He's not, he's an engineered human, or he's got these upgrades, but he's not like going back and forth between time. He's not doing all this crazy stuff. He's just trying to get revenge for his wife's death.
Yeah, it's a revenge story with with a couple of other elements added, like like STEM and a fun little twist. And so, uh, STEM STEM gives control his of his body back to Gray, and Gray cleans up the crime scene. But eventually, the police find the body, and we get this autopsy scene where this guy says this, like, I guess the coroner. This current coroner says that like this guy had wiring in inside of him, and his hand was a gun. He had like a gun in his hand, a literal handgun.
Which, I mean, I don't know what the laws are like in this time that this takes place, but I feel like that shouldn't be legal to just have guns in your hands.
Yeah, I don't know. So he's telling this to Detective Cortez, who is the coroner says the only like physical evidence that they saw is that they had some, I think it was like mechanical grease or oil or something that has car related near the door of the house. And Detective Cortez is like, wait, the paraplegic used to work on cars. He would have had grease on his hands, which is a bit of a leap. But then she looks over the security drone footage and she sees Gray like wheeling around in the area. But the computer tells her that he's an impossible suspect because he is a paraplegic. And but she decides to trust her instincts.
Which, early on he's pulling that he's continually pulling that bit that he's still in the wheelchair, bound to the
Yeah.
wheelchair. But later on, he just goes out to, bars and whatnot, and just freely is walking around. Like, he's not going to get rid of all these people. He's just, like, what's stopping them from going out and saying, oh, yeah, this guy can actually walk?
Mm-hmm.
He may have killed a person in that bathroom.
Yeah.
And I guess we should get into that scene.
Well, hold on. We still have a very important scene to go over. So Aaron calls Gray back to his house, and he basically tells Gray, "Listen, I can track you. I know what you did. I know you murdered that man." And he says, "If they catch you, if they connect you to this crime, then STEM will be discovered. You'll go back to being quadriplegic. Don't do this, because I'm not going to let you out of my sight." And so now we know Aaron is watching them.
Yeah.
So now he's got Detective Cortez on his back, and he's got Aaron on his back. And yeah, again, there's that scene where he continues to fool Detective Cortez, but STEM helps Gray lie to her, and she can't.
I mean, why wouldn't he just try and have the inventor dude talk to the cops for him and be like, because would the cops get rid of the technology? If anything, I think they'd find it useful potentially for other cases.
Well, no, I think because the whole reason that he signed that NDA is because it would take. He even says it in the movie, like it would take years for me to actually get approval to test these things on humans.
Well, yeah, but he doesn't need to say he's been testing it on humans.
I mean, he's testing it on Gray.
Well, yeah, but he could just be like, yeah, I found this information with my helpful chip.
Yeah, but they probably take the chip away. Should not be great. So then we get to the bar scene. Old Bones Bar. So earlier when Gray was going through the ex-Marines messages, he found a lot of mentions of this place named Old Bones. And so Stem eventually finds out that this Old Bones place is a bar, and so he goes there. And why don't you walk us to the bar scene, Chase?
Well, first off, I think we got to say Old Bones. It's a pretty badass name for a bar. That's a stereotypical biker bar. You know that's going to be a hardcore poppin' place, and it is. But anyways, Gray walks into the bar, and he's basically walking around with as much swagger as he can, knowing he's got this thing in his body that can basically fuck up anybody he wants.
Like he's walking around in the bar?
Well, you know what I mean. He's in the bar.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, does anybody know where this guy is?"
Yeah, so he's still in his wheelchair at this point. Like he wheels in, and he starts to ask if anybody knows about anything that has to do with his wife's murder, and everybody laughs at him, except for this one guy named Tolan. And so Tolan and three of Tolan's guys take him back into the bar, and they start messing with him, and eventually, you know, Gray's like, I just want to hear that you were involved. And then Tolan, like, out of pride, he's like, yeah, I was involved. And
well, yeah, because as soon as he gets the confirmation that this guy was there, or at least somewhat related to what happened,
Gray lets Stem take over.
Yeah, and this guy he gets beat up, so bloodied, it's crazy.
So Gray kills three of Tolan's like lackeys, and then he beats up Tolan, and then he uses a knife to torture Tolan until he talks. And eventually, you know, after this, like, this kind of the way, because Stem tells Gray, oh, use the knife to make him talk, but then, you know, Gray grabs a knife, but he can't do it, and so Stem's like, let me do it, you won't even have to look. And he lets him do it, but we don't get to see what Stem does with the knife either. You know, we just hear this sound effect, which is like this really uncomfortable, like slicing into flesh sound effect, and we get to hear Tolan screaming, and then it cuts to Tolan's face, and this man is super bloody. Like Stem really did a number on his face.
Well, and then we find out that Stem is being hacked into.
Yeah. So
they gotta move quick.
So Tolan basically, he says one name before he dies. He says Fisk. So now they gotta look for this Fisk guy. But then Stem is getting attacked. So Aaron, who knows where Stem is, he knows they're at a place they're not supposed to be. So he's trying to shut down Stem remotely. And Stem is like, I found this computer hacker that'll be able to remove Aaron's control. And so they go to this computer hacker, and you know, the whole way there, Gray is like he's fumbling over. He's having trouble moving his body. But eventually, they make it to this hacker's place. But
And
now,
this scene is so weird with how it's shot.
what do you mean by that?
Well, it's just like I don't know. There was something off-putting, not off-putting, but after she does her hacking stuff, and she just runs off without saying anything. It felt odd. It just felt odd to me.
Yeah. Well, the reason that she runs off is because we know now that the character named Fisk and one of his like cronies are coming after Gray. So Fisk is coming up, and this hacker she hacks into STEM, and she takes away Aaron's control, and then she sees on the security cams that Fisk is showing up, and she just ditches.
Leaves him laying on the ground.
Yeah, and Fisk and his little like crony, they both have those handguns from earlier, guns inside their hands. And we see that Fisk has these weird glowing artificial eyes. We know that he is an upgraded human as well. And so eventually Fisk and his crony catch up with Gray. And his crony starts to chase Gray around. And why don't you walk us through this chase scene and eventual kill here?
Well, okay, so Gray is chasing after him, right? And then they're like, it's like a rooftop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're on the roof, and then just he takes the guy, holds him up, and then boom, right in the head. Blood splatters all across Gray's face and shirt.
Yeah.
He's like, well, he's not like, well, fuck, but he's like, well, I just killed another one.
Yeah, well, what happened was, he actually took this guy's arm, broke it, turned his own handgun on the guy's head, and just blew this guy's head off. Like,
Pretty violent.
It was brutal. And
But then he goes back home, and his mom's there. And she's wondering why he's all bloody. He's like, is everything okay? You can tell me what's going on. Which obviously he can't be like. She's like, you have control of what you're doing. You can stop. And he's like, no, I really can't. And she's like, yes, you can. But you can't be like, oh, there's this fucking thing inside me controlling my every move. Yeah. Also, he couldn't even tell her if he wanted, or else,
he
Aaron
signed
might
an NDA. He signed.
I love how we're calling it an NDA. I don't even know if it's an NDA.
Well, it's basically an NDA.
Practically.
I don't know what else it would be.
Not up to date on our business terms.
No. So yeah. So now his mom, the cat's out of the bag. His mom knows. And so he takes a nap. And now that he's kind of feeling, I don't know, a little bit rested up, Detective Cortez comes to his house. And she starts questioning him because she found on another security drone that he was also there on another site of a murder.
Whoa, that's 2 times you've been at 2 murder spots. You might be a little suspicious, buddy.
And so he obviously tells Detective Cortez, like, I'm a quadriplegic, I literally couldn't do anything. And Detective Cortez is like, nah, she's really suspicious of him. And he's like, listen, I was just trying to figure out information on my own.
Well, I think it's when he's very adamant. He's like, there's no way I could have done this. You're talking nonsense, basically. I mean, I feel like when someone is very adamant like that, like, there's no way it could possibly have been me. Like, Something's off.
Yeah. And also, she slips a wiretap into Gray's jacket's pocket. And then she leaves. And then, uh, Gray tries to get up, but he can't. And, he asks Stem, he's like, Stem, why can't I move? And, then Stem's like, because I'm doing nothing. And he's like, Stem, why can't I move? She's, because I'm doing nothing. And so it turns out that when the hacker removed Aaron's control, he also removed Gray's control. So now Stem doesn't need Gray's permission to act independently.
Yeah, he is in full control now.
Stem can do whatever he wants. And so Gray's like, yeah, I don't want to kill anymore. But then Stem's like, well, if we don't go kill Fisk, he is going to come hunt us down and kill us. So, you know, Stem just like, he just hijacks Gray's body, and they get in their car. But Detective Cortez is listening through the wiretap, and she hears Gray get up and move, so she knows that he's not a quadriplegic, and she hears him talk to himself.
Yeah, because no one else can hear Stem.
No one else can hear Stem. She can only hear half the conversation.
And so in her mind, she's probably thinking, this guy's losing it.
Yeah, he's probably crazy.
Might have killed these people. Especially after the death of his wife.
Then we get this chase scene in which Detective Cortez in her cop car chases Gray, and eventually Stem hijacks a self-driving car, and he makes it slam into Detective Cortez's car, so that he lost her.
Yeah, this car chase scene, it reminded me of just how it was shot. It seemed very much like a modern car commercial.
Yeah. And
I was just getting that vibe.
The director, Leigh Whannell, actually got tips for the scene from his friend James Wan, who directed one of the Fast and Furious movies.
Also, well, because no, they're big. They were big with. They did The Conjuring and all that stuff together. All the, you know.
So.
Because Leigh Whannell wrote a lot of those.
Yeah. And so, you know, eventually, Gray and Stem track down Fisk, and they track him down in like this, I don't know where he is, but he's in like an abandoned warehouse or something.
Because of course all big climactic things have to take place in abandoned buildings randomly.
Yeah, and as you were saying in this movie, the way Fisk talks, he seems like people with cybernetic enhancements are like superior. You even compared him to like a Nazi.
Yeah, I was getting strong white supremacist vibes.
Yeah, in fact, if you took the things that he said in any other context, he would have been super racist.
Yeah, it just seems very. It almost is like might be intentional.
Yeah, he definitely thinks he's superior to others because he has cybernetic enhancements. And so he's talking to Gray, and he's like, I'm going to induct you into my race, the upgraded.
Yeah.
And then Gray asks why, and Fisk reveals something. He reveals that the hit, wasn't on Gray's wife. It was to paralyze him, to sever his spine, and that his wife was just extra money. And so we realized that somebody intentionally wanted Gray to be paralyzed. He wanted Gray to be a quadriplegic. But eventually, these guys start fighting, and since Fisk has cybernetic enhancements of his own, he's on equal terms with Stem, because Stem...
Yeah, it's basically counterbalance each other.
Yeah, STEM hasn't been around long enough to like work out all the kinks. And so eventually Fisk like throws Gray against this wall, and Gray's just kind of like sitting there. But then, STEM's like, do something. We've exhausted all our tactical options. You have to do something or else we're going to die. And so what Gray thinks to do is he connects that Fisk and the ex-Marine guy that he murdered earlier in the movie are brothers. And so he taunts Fisk, and he's like, oh, I took care of your brother for you, that he was no soldier that day. He cried like a baby.
And he's playing on the guy's emotions.
Yeah. Which is funny, because earlier in the fight, when Gray went to shoot Fisk, he's like, don't let emotions guide your decisions. Don't never do that.
It's purposely set up that way.
Yeah. And Fisk gets angry, and he tries to like throw Gray again, but Gray flips him and shoves his skull down on a broken piece of glass. So Fisk is dead. And they check Fisk's phone, and they discover that the hit was made by Aaron, the inventor. Of course,
it's the shady motherfucker.
The shady bastard.
Which, you just look at this dude and his hair. No, he's up to no good. I don't care what you tell me.
There's no way he wasn't evil.
Yeah, there's no way he wasn't evil. There's never a good, mysterious scientist. It's always the shady ones.
So then, Gray and STEM, they drive to his house, and we get this really cool shot of Aaron's stairs, and there's backlighting, so you just see the silhouette.
Look at you using your film terms.
There's this backlighting, and we just see the silhouette of Gray just walking down the stairs, and it's just shot so well. Like, this movie looks so beautiful.
Well, I like how it purposely uses the dark and grimy feeling.
So Aaron has 2 bodyguards, but Gray doesn't even blink when he just guns them down. Or STEM guns them down, I should say. And, he confronts Aaron, who's just sitting at his desk. And then he's like, you killed my wife. But then Detective Cortez shows up behind Gray. And she makes him get on the ground. But the sooner that she goes down to handcuff him, STEM like jumps up and throws her back. And then he grabs her by the neck and he slams her into the desk and he's choking her.
Mm-hmm. And I should say, like, particularly in this scene and then, like, just throughout the movie, like, the use of, like, red.
Yeah, red lighting.
To, like, and, like, highlight his face. And, like, how that symbolizes, like, his anger and the violence going on. I think it's used very well.
Yeah, definitely. So, Gray doesn't want to kill Detective Cortez because she hasn't wronged him. But STEM is like, she wants to kill us. We have to kill her. So, Gray's just fighting for control, and he manages to stab a knife through his own hand in order to try to gain control. But STEM, they're just fighting back and forth for control, and STEM throws Detective Cortez, and Gray tells Detective Cortez to use the taser to like disorient STEM, and show
which
she does.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that a taser wouldn't do much to like an electronic thing like that, but
I don't know. If STEM's connected to his nervous system, then it probably would.
Well, yeah, it would damage his nervous system, obviously, but also it's like there's wiring. Who knows? I'm probably thinking too much into that. But.
Yeah, we're not experts on chips and spines.
Chips and that's the name of our new band. Write it down.
So Aaron grabs Detective Cortez's gun and he points it at Gray, and he's like, I haven't been running this company for years. Stem has. And so we get this cool little reveal. So there's basically two little twists in this movie. One, that Aaron was the one who put the hit out on to paralyze Gray, and two is that Stem was behind this whole thing the whole time. And so
I mean, I feel like that's always the thing, though. You know, it's that the technology knows more than you think it does.
Yeah, the technology is always smarter than humans, because STEM is way smarter than Gray or Aaron or anybody.
If anything, you know, I'd say, like, after STEM is put into Gray, this almost becomes STEM's movie, literally.
Yeah.
Um,
STEM's like the puppet master.
Because, like, obviously we care about him getting revenge on his wife's death.
Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, it's... The most interesting part is their dynamic.
Yeah.
And then that shift over control that we see.
Mm-hmm. Because usually Stem never acts hostile towards Gray. He never yells at him or says anything negative towards Gray. Like, it's just diplomatic.
I mean, even if he did, it's hard to feel that same emotion from a monotone, robotic voice.
So, Aaron tells Gray that, like, Stem wants to evolve to be human. That's what Stem wants. And we get this, though Gray's, like, his body's disabled on the ground because the taser, like, messed with Stem. But he gets back up and with the knife still in his hand, he stabs Aaron in the side of the head. With the knife still in his hand. So Aaron is dead. And he grabs the gun off the floor and he goes to finish off Detective Cortez. And Stem is telling him to stop resisting because he has a fragile human mind and his mind could break. And, you know,
but he doesn't want to shoot Cortez.
No, he's trying so hard to not shoot Cortez. And so you get this really cool, like, line, because Gray is like, you aren't in control, and then he manages to point the gun at his own neck, and he's like, I am. And then you hear just a gunshot noise, but then it just cuts to Gray in a hospital bed.
And this was where I was mad for about 30 seconds.
He just cuts to Gray in a hospital bed, and his wife is there with him.
And I was, you know, obviously you were hearing these were my first reactions viewing this, but
yeah,
when I saw that he was in the hospital bed and that his wife came, you know, to check on him, I was saying out loud, I was like, this cannot be all just a dream. If this is just a dream and they're copping out like this movie has drastically gone downhill. But I'm glad that that was not the case.
Yeah.
And it was interesting how they were putting Gray in Stem was putting Gray in a faux mindset of happiness for himself.
Yeah, and so you know, Gray and his wife, like, kiss, and, you know, he appears happy. And then we cut to Gray's body, and he has the gun pointed at Cortez. And then,
you know, and Stem's like, he's in a happier place now. It's okay.
He's like, a fake world is less painful than a real one. And then
I feel like, you know, because Gray wanted to kill himself. I feel like, this fake world might be better.
Mm-hmm. And you even get that line earlier in the movie where Gray's looking at the people who are living in, like, VR, and he's saying, like, I don't understand why anybody would want to live in a fake world.
This is the more gritty version of Ready Player One.
And then Stem, who is now in full possession of Gray's body, just shoots Cortez. The guns are down in cold blood. He pulls the knife out of his hand, and you get these really cool, like, moving shots where now, before it was with Gray's human movement, but now it's all mechanical. STEM is in full control. And then you get another cool shot of STEM going up the stairs, and that's how the movie ends. STEM wins in the end in this movie.
That is our movie.
Yeah. Well, why don't we go into our closing thoughts here?
Well, I mean, I want to say that this movie reminded me a lot of the kinds of movies you see on like the Sci-Fi Channel, but executed a lot better. I felt like you could have the same premise, but with a lot more crap, and probably has been done with a lot more crap on something like that. But it's the way it was executed and the way it was directed, I respect a lot.
Yeah.
Because this very much could have been a lot worse. But saying that, I don't think the story was necessarily anything magnificent. I think it did have a few interesting moments. I don't think the twists were necessarily too amazing, but it kept my attention.
All right. As for my closing thoughts, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought the premise was super interesting. It's like a revenge story, but this man has an artificial intelligence inside of him, and I really like their dynamic this entire movie. This movie is shot beautifully, especially in the action. Like, the action is shot so well in this movie with all
the action's the best part besides Logan Marshall Green and STEM.
Yeah, and I really like the story of this movie. I think there's maybe one scene that I didn't really like, and that was the car chase scene. It just felt a little unnecessary. But I basically liked everything in this movie. I thought everything was interesting. Like, this movie didn't really disappoint me at all.
Or you continue, sorry.
I was very, like, impressed with this movie when I first saw it. Like, this movie, like, blew me out of the water. It was great. And, yeah, I think more people should see this movie. I don't think this movie's talked about enough. I think
this is definitely an underseen movie.
I think this is an underrated movie.
And I think the reason we have our our different ways of seeing it is because it goes back to the different genres we're more drawn towards.
Yeah.
I think obviously you're more of an action,
sci-fi
sci-fi kind of guy.
Yeah.
As where that's not necessarily something I eagerly seek out like you.
Mm-hmm.
But I still respect.
Why don't we move into our ratings now?
Go for it.
All right. I will be giving Upgrade some very high praise. I'll be giving this movie a 9 out of 10.
Holy moly.
I enjoy this movie so much. Like, I think it's really good. Can't really think of a really bad aspect of this movie. It's just, I never got, like, bored or disinterested while watching this movie. Everything was interesting to me. What about you, Chase?
I will not be going nearly as high as that. I feel like, it's still new. There's still time for this to grow on me. I'm giving this roughly a 6.5 to a 7, more closely to a 7, I would say,
Nice.
if we're rounding up.
I see. Well, that wraps up Upgrade. If you've made it this far, then we thank you for watching. If you could do us a favor and hit that like and subscribe button, it would help us a lot.
Throw some comments down below if you would like.
Share it with a friend.
Share it with a friend.
Yeah. Anyway,
Hey Nando,
Yeah,
what are we going to be talking about on the next episode?
we're gonna be talking about a 2009 stop motion animation by Wes Anderson.
Whoa, I didn't know you were a big Wes Anderson fan.
I'm of course talking about Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Let's go, Fantastic Mr. Fox.
All
Now,
right.
if we're talking underrated movies, one of the most underrated animated movies of all time, in my humble opinion.
In your humble opinion. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye.